Late last year, World Archery sent out a memo reminding people that at World Archery events, all camouflage equipment is banned. Now, this only concerns World Archery events, and that includes the Olympic Games, the World Championships, and the World Cups. While this won't affect most of you, remember that most clubs and associations do base their rules and regulations off of World Archery's constitution. So even though your club may not be affiliated with World Archery, this could be an issue for you. Just to emphasize again, this discussion concerns the rules and regulations of the sport style of archery as laid out by World Archery, otherwise known as FITA. If you're not shooting as part of a World Archery affiliated club or association, such as a bow hunting association or 3D archery association, these rules and regulations may differ to you. One of the goals of World Archery is to present a clean, professional image of the sport. In fact, many of the documents and rules and policies have phrases and clauses which convey this message. In the World Archery Constitution, it describes the World Championships as a majestic event. So, given this imagery they're trying to portray, it's pretty obvious and understandable that World Archery has to be very specific on what its athletes are and aren't allowed to do. Because of this emphasis on professional image and professionalism, camouflage clothing gets a blanket ban. Chapter 20 of the World Archery Constitution covers dress regulations for target archery. No denim, jeans, or camouflage clothes may be worn, nor any oversized or baggy type pants or shorts. And Chapter 33 covers regulations for field and 3D archery. Clothing should not be camouflage. No oversized or baggy type trousers allowed. As an example of how national associations model their rules, Archery Australia has this in the Constitution. The following items of clothing are not permitted. Clothing with inappropriate or offensive images, slogans or advertising. Untidy, unclean, damaged or torn clothing. Camouflage style clothing or clothing intended to break up or hide a person's image or blend into the bush, such as green or green-based camouflage. First, let's get the whole denim and baggy trousers thing out of the way. Remember that World Archery rules only cover World Archery events. So if you're shooting at the international level, such as the Olympic Games, then you can't wear jeans, which kind of makes sense. Nor can you wear trousers which sag down past your knees. In fact, there is a rule in the Constitution that covers the minimum length of skirts and shorts based on the athlete's fingertips plus a certain length. And I get this. It's not a war against swag, it's the public image of the sport. Every sporting association will have strict rules regarding clothing. This also means that at state and national level, the rules may not be as strictly enforced. For example, Archery Australia, in their rules, only cover that archers wear neat casual clothing. At Australian events or state events, archers are expected to wear archery whites, or otherwise their club, state or national uniform, or otherwise wear archery merchandise. While some clubs may require their archers to wear uniforms when they're at the club or doing club shoots, I'm sure most clubs won't kick members out for wearing a t-shirt. This discussion, however, is centered on the camouflage rule. Now, to get the easy one out of the way first, it makes sense for field and 3D archery because it's a safety issue. Visibility is very important on a field course. However, in target archery, visibility isn't that important, so it isn't a safety ruling, it's entirely based on public image. A lot of people are angry for various reasons. Archery authorities are wanting to present a clean, professional, friendly image of the sport, and they see camouflage as something which is used by military or by hunters. Then there are people who point out that camouflage clothing is really cheap and easy to acquire. You can get them from army disposals and outdoor stores. They're quite cheap, they're durable, they're comfortable, and a lot of people feel they're better to shoot in than athletic clothing. Then there are people who just hate being told what to do. They hate rules, they hate regulations, and they just don't like being told they can or can't wear something. So a lot of people, in fact, don't go to clubs or competitions because of this stubbornness. Now, I'm not going to get bogged down in this argument. Rather, I want to talk about how this rule affects archers. We know that camouflage clothing is banned at world level. We know that most national associations don't allow it, and in turn, your club may not allow it. Though, as you get closer to the grassroots level, it's likely that it's going to be less stringently policed. That said, if you're beginning to compete at higher levels in your region or your state or your nation, then you may run into complications if your equipment does not comply with these rules. Speaking of complications, there is a slight discrepancy. The World Archery Constitution's rule on camouflage only covers clothing. However, there is a long-standing policy enforced by World Archery which covers all archery equipment. Now, this was clarified in their October 2014 newsletter. World Archery has been asked if anything used by the athletes can have a camo color since the rule refers to clothing. The answer is that World Archery has had a long-standing policy that anything used by an athlete cannot be in camo color at World Archery competitions, including all clothing, caps, equipment, and anything carried or worn on the field of play. That's all equipment. That includes accessories, not just clothing, but everything you use. Your bow, sights, arrows, release aids, arm guards, quivers, tape, spotting scope. I mean, not wearing a camo jacket makes sense, it's pretty clear. But the rule stipulates, according to this policy, that even something like a camouflage band-aid would not be allowed. There are a couple of big issues which come from this blanket ban. The first one is how the rule is interpreted and enforced. Now, most associations stipulate that it is the responsibility of the organizing body to determine what is and is not acceptable in accordance with the rules. And this often comes down to whoever is judging on the day. Now, that raises the question of what exactly constitutes a camouflage pattern. If I'm using tiger stripe wraps on my arrows, would that be considered camouflage? I read about a case concerning an archer who claimed he was disqualified from an event because the judge deemed that his bow was a camouflage pattern. Now, the bow he used was a Hoyt HPX with a red fusion finish. The Hoyt HPX is like the epitome of a non-hunting target bow. And the red fusion is a lightning pattern. It's a great pattern. It comes in blue fusion and red fusion. It's a lightning bolt pattern. It's very popular on Hoyt bows, compound and recurve. And the judge declared that this pattern was similar to a camouflage pattern. This doesn't make any sense because this is a stock Hoyt color. This isn't a hunting bow that's being used in a target event. This is a target bow that comes as is from a target bow manufacturer. And yet it is decided that this particular kind of paint is too close to being a pattern-breaking camouflage design. Now, eventually the archer managed to convince the judge to relent on their decision because there were many bows being used which were of the same red fusion pattern. That raises the question of, can a judge say, oh, this bow has a paint job which breaks pattern, therefore is it camouflage? The other ambiguity is that there isn't a specific rule stating what color the camouflage needs to be. That means that if you turn up with a pink camouflage bow, and there are bows like that, then that's technically not allowed. If you've got what is fashionable camo t-shirts which are brightly colored, like bright white and grey, that's not allowed. If you're wearing a navy blue style digicam shirt, that's not allowed. That gives us a slight discrepancy because you can wear an olive drab t-shirt, which is allowed, but you can't wear a blazing orange bright fluoro camouflage t-shirt. Because the rules don't specify this, a lot of this comes down to interpretation, and how reasonable and fair the judge or the official is feeling on the day. In this case, Archery Australia has a more specific ruling and states that camouflage is intended to break up or hide a person's image or blend into the bush, such as green or green-based camouflage. In this, I like this description because it adds intent to the interpretation. So if someone wears pink camo pants, then it's less likely they'll be pinged for wearing camo, because pink camo isn't designed to hide or blend into the bush. Bear in mind, however, that many other associations don't have the same specific description. The second major issue with the camouflage rule covering all equipment is that a lot of archery equipment comes in camouflage. Just walk to any archery store and half the shelves are camouflage equipment. Bows and compound bows in particular come in camo patterns. A lot of people buy their first bow as a camouflage hunting bow. It's usually much cheaper and readily available than those large metallic target bows. Not only that, I mean, it's one thing to be wearing camo clothing like a jacket, but you know, if I happen to be using a quiver, which I really like, it's really useful, and it has like a camouflage belt, then I can't compete because it's not allowed. It's effectively preventing people from joining events because a piece of their equipment happens to be the wrong color. This includes other accessories like straps, tripods, hats, and so on. Now, again, Archery Australia has kind of deviated from the rule, and they clarified in the December 2014 newsletter. Archery Australia takes a slightly different view of camouflage-coloured equipment. For tournaments conducted in Australia, it's accepted that camouflage-coloured equipment, in particular bows, are permitted, as they are generally cheaper to purchase than coloured bows, and we do not want to disadvantage people. Common sense! I mean, that's a pretty huge break from the World Archery ruling. Now, remember that World Archery rules only cover world events, so Archery Australia can do whatever they want in their competitions. It's true, it is very cheap and easy to get camo bows, especially beginner compound bows. And thumbs up for Archery Australia for limiting that rule to only camo clothing, and I think that's a pretty reasonable call. If everyone at the club suddenly turned up in combat fatigues and camo gear, then it isn't the most presentable of images for a family and kids who are looking for a sport to get into. But I don't really think that camo equipment detracts from that image. Now, this is only confirmed for Archery Australia. I don't know about other countries, so if you're not sure, look up the constitution and rules for your governing body. Anyway, this video isn't about debating whether this rule should or shouldn't exist. Fact is, the rule is in place. Some organizations and associations will enforce it strictly, others won't. For those that do apply it, it's up to the discretion of the judge or the official on the field of play to determine if an archer is in violation of this rule. If you're shooting according to these rules, then you will be affected. Avoid camo clothing if you're going to be shooting at an event, and try to refrain from using camouflage equipment, just to avoid being, picked out and disqualified. Whether or not you agree doesn't really matter. Just be aware the rule is there. Now, obviously, if you're not shooting a target event, then this doesn't necessarily apply to you, though you may have your own rules in your association or your club. If not sure, check. If you're a bow hunter in the field, then this does not apply to you at all. Wear as much camo as you want. Anyway, this is NUSensei. Hope you found this helpful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.